Many people operate under the assumption that IQ is a fixed metric, a genetic baseline established in childhood that remains static throughout a person's life. This assumption leads to a specific behavior, attempting to expand intelligence by increasing the volume of information we consume, treating the brain like a vessel for videos and podcasts. This model of intelligence fails to account for figures like Albert Einstein, whose early teachers described him as a slow learner who struggled to meet standard academic expectations. Thomas Edison faced a similar assessment. He was removed from the school system after his instructors concluded he lacked the capacity to understand his lessons. These early school systems were designed to measure rote memorization and compliance, often overlooking the specific cognitive processes that drive innovation. Einstein and Edison did not possess different genes as adults than they did as struggling children. Their cognitive output shifted as they refined their daily operational habits, suggests that intelligence functions more like a biological muscle than a static data collection bin. This biological muscle requires a state of productive friction. Growth occurs when the brain encounters resistance that forces it to work harder to resolve a problem. Seeking immediate help when you encounter a difficult problem removes the struggle necessary for learning. Benjamin Franklin practiced a form of this by reading an essay, hiding the text, and attempting to reconstruct the entire argument from memory. Writing serves as a primary tool for this deliberate processing. It forces the brain to slow down and organize abstract thoughts into a linear structure. This mechanical act of writing forces the brain to generate concrete mental images out of confusion, making the information more durable. Without this friction, information passes through the brain without leaving a lasting structural mark on your neural pathways. Building on that foundation leads to synthesis, where the brain increases the density and speed of connections between different ideas. Stepping outside of your primary field of study builds a more versatile mind. High-level problem-solving often comes from applying a concept from one discipline to a problem in an unrelated one. Maintaining these connections requires memory, which functions as a mechanical skill developed through daily exercise rather than a lucky trait. The most effective way to strengthen this skill is to study a concept and immediately attempt to teach it to someone else without referring to your notes. Forcing the brain to retrieve data and explain it to another person physically reinforces the network of ideas you've built. The final phase of the cycle is incubation. This is the period where the brain requires a lack of external input to finalize the processing of new information. Albert Einstein integrated this into his routine by walking for hours without books, notes, or conversation, allowing his mind to work in a vacuum. Charles Darwin followed a similar pattern, limiting his focused scientific work to roughly 4 or 5 hours a day and spending the rest of his time in rest or quiet movement. The brain solidifies neural pathways during these periods of rest. Moments of boredom provide the necessary downtime for the brain to recharge and upgrade its cognitive hardware. Constantly flooding the mind with new inputs prevents this incubation from occurring, effectively stalling the growth of your intelligence. Real cognitive growth depends on this deliberate cycle, the friction of the struggle, the synthesis of new connections, and the silence of incubation. This shifts the role of the learner from a passive recipient of content to an active participant in shaping their own mental capacity. Information that is not followed by immediate action is rarely retained. You can apply this right now. Pause the video and, strictly from memory, write the core lesson you took from this scene in the comments. The mental effort required to pull those facts from memory triggers the reinforcement of those neural pathways. Intelligence is not a matter of genetic luck. It is a result of the habits you choose to practice.